What's up, everybody? It's the Apothecary here, and today we've got a very special episode for you. Today we're going to talk about what I think is a very interesting subject. We're going to talk about the 70s, just the entire decade of the 70s for movies. A decade that was also known as the New Wave of Hollywood cinema. They called it this because...
Titties.
In a way, yes, that is a big reason why. Here's my guest for this episode, my very good friend and the best writer I know, Mr. Matthew Paterson.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
This is going to be a very fun episode. This man is a movie wizard, so a lot of fun discussions are about to be had. So, as Mr. Paterson just said, titties. Big reason why this was called the New Wave, because that, in addition to many other things that weren't being shown during the 60s, were now for the first time being shown regularly throughout the 70s. In the 60s, and for many decades before that, Hollywood had this thing called the Production Code, which basically prohibited any movies from showing anything that was considered too vulgar. Titties being one of them. And that was just the way it was. That's why so many movies from back then are relatively clean. Even if they had kind of risque plots, there were just certain things that couldn't be shown. You know, like when Alfred Hitchcock showed a toilet in Psycho, everybody lost their shit because it was like, oh, a toilet? How filthy, you know? And so it was like that for a long time. But then around like the late 60s. Well, basically, here's what ended the code. In 1964, one of the greatest directors who ever lived, Sidney Lumet, made a movie called The Pawnbroker. And that was the first movie, I'm pretty sure, somebody could fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure I have it right, the first movie since the code was originated that showed nudity, among other things. And it was a big hit. It got a lot of Oscars, so it kind of made everyone in Hollywood realize, okay, the code is irrelevant now. And a lot of other movies for the next few years followed that trend of not really caring about the code, of showing risque stuff that hadn't really been shown before. And in the late 60s, we saw this new emergence of, just brand new kinds of movies that hadn't been made before. They weren't clean, they were edgy, they were adult, they dealt with like kind of dark subjects, they were a lot more violent. The movie that basically kicked the whole thing off was in 1967. It was Bonnie and Clyde. That was the one that basically started the whole thing, because that one was violent. It was just everything that movies hadn't been up to that point. And over the next few years, throughout the 60s, we had the build-up to the New Wave, and that's what we're going to talk about here first, is just those late 60s movies that kind of kick-started the whole thing. So let's get into it. We already just said Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, we can both agree, obviously, that was a revolutionary movie.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I don't know. That movie with the violent, like, I don't know, like the ending scene, especially when the car got shot up.
Yeah, spoiler, you probably know. It's like...
It's been out for years.
Yeah, it's been out for 50 years. Yeah. But, like, obviously the last scene where they both get shot to shit, was very shocking at the time. And what was also very shocking was how quickly people took to it. Because it was something...
The audience responded, especially younger audience.
Yeah, very positively. Yeah. That was mainly who was seeing this stuff at the time, was like the counterculture people who were like looking for something different,
it was not for the older people. The older
not
people
for the older people. Yeah, exactly. But even still, it got a lot of Oscar attention.
Oh yeah,
which is the shocking thing. All those old fucks at the Academy actually took to a movie that risque.
Yeah.
It was just very interesting. So
it was really steering them into a new direction.
Basically, yeah, that was what started the whole thing. And then, let's see, what else was from that year? Oh, a big one, The Graduate. That was another huge one that, like, I mean, because, like, okay, same year, right, 1967. This is brand new. If you had told anybody then that, like, 5 years ago, if you had told them that they would be seeing in 5 years a movie about a college graduate who's like 20, right? Something like that.
Yeah. It's like
who begins an affair with a married like 40-year-old woman and then tries to bang her daughter.
Yeah.
Like, that never would have happened.
No, people wouldn't have seen that.
Exactly. Nobody would have even like been able to process something like that. And that was what made that one so special. That and the fact that it is a masterpiece. It is one of the greatest movies of all time, I believe. If we don't get to him later, because we have a lot of people to talk about, shout out to Mike Nichols, because first of all, legend. Like, just bottom line, he is a legend. But also, he was there a lot at the forefront of the new wave, you know, helping to get it off the ground. Because he did that, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and a bunch of others, and he carried over into the 70s with a couple others.
And one of the first movies with like a great soundtrack. Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, with that was a great example of like an early day of like a famous band or musician like doing a hit song for a soundtrack, you know. And it was a great song. It's a song we still use like in memes today, you know.
I mean, they did the whole thing. They did all. I mean, the
whole
Scarborough Fair. Yes, I mean, it's, you know.
Yeah,
it was Mrs. Robinson, of course. But
that's a great song.
Yeah,
I love it when they use that in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, but it's the punk version though. It's the
That's right. Yeah. And that was like a lot of stuff from that movie we're still using today.
Oh yeah,
you know,
it's much reference. The shot between the leg.
Oh my god, it's one of the most famous scenes ever. Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Yeah,
that's been parodied like a million times. It's a shame that Dustin Hoffman turned out to be such a big piece of shit, though.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't read a lot about him, but he also hasn't been doing much in the past.
Well, that's
years.
The thing is like
maybe the Meyerowitz stories.
When he got accused of all that, he was in the middle of like what was about to be a comeback. Because he did the Meyerowitz stories, and he was huge for the first time in a while, but then it was like,
yeah,
this dirtbag is not about to get famous again. I'm going to shut this shit down, you know, so...
he was definitely one of the many taken down in that little span of time.
Yeah, he was one of the most public ones, I remember. Another one from 1967, Cool Hand Luke.
I love Cool Hand Luke.
Huge
one.
Watched
that recently, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Showed my girlfriend Abby. She loved it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Didn't expect. I put it on like not expecting her to like it.
And
then she ended up watching it, and I was like, "Hey, you're actually not looking at your phone."
That's always nice when that happens. When like you know you can get somebody into something that they wouldn't normally want to see.
Yeah. No, it was great. I was actually very happy because I ended up making me want to watch it more and like just. They're so sweaty in that movie. Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is out there in the desert, and it's just like they're.
Every scene there. There's a joke in Cheers actually where they're talking about sweatiest movie, and they're like they'd said like Rocky 3 or Aliens, and then the last person came in and said Cool Hand Luke, and I was like, yeah, that's actually
that's funny,
pretty accurate. Paul Newman in that too is so good, and
Paul Newman was great. Shout out to Paul Newman, that motherfucker was great in everything.
Yeah, not just though. George Kennedy stole the show with his character in that one, honestly.
You know something that I found out recently, because he looked pretty old in that movie to me, right? And that came out in like 1967. Yeah. That motherfucker lived until 2014.
Damn.
I cannot.
Oh yeah, no, because he was in The Gambler.
That was his last
Mark
movie.
Wahlberg. Holy
and that's how I found out. I was like, the fucker from Cool Hand Luke was still alive in 2014? What?
Damn, I forgot he was in The Gambler. That is recent.
That's one of my favorite quotes too. Is what we've got here is failure to communicate.
Yeah.
That's good shit.
Classic line. The boiled eggs.
Yeah. Another big one from that year, In the Heat of the Night. That one was especially revolutionary because like the idea of like a black actor and a white actor being equals in a movie was also very like rare. And like Sidney Poitier was like the leading guy in that movie. Like he and completely blanking on his name right now. Rod Steiger.
Oh, the other guy. Okay.
And the two of them just like actually that was a very like important moment.
Yeah,
I feel.
Yeah, no,
especially
movie...
the scene where the famous line, "They call me Mr. Tibbs."
Yeah,
and that movie won so many Oscars too, and it was just like
it spawned 2 sequels.
It did? I know it had a TV show.
I'm pretty sure it was 2 or at least 1 sequel. I can't remember what it was called. For the life of me, I think it was actually called "They Call Me Mr. Tibbs."
There was a sequel called Mr. Tibbs.
Mr. Tibbs, yeah, Mr. Tibbs, and I think that I don't know how well that one did, but
yeah. shout out to Sidney Poitier. I'm going to be doing a lot of shout outs this episode.
Yep.
Yeah, that guy was awesome. Yeah, and yeah, just a great movie overall. Also had a very underrated actor in it who I'm also going to give a shout out to here really quick, who was never really like that big of a deal, at least not as big as he should have been. Larry Gates.
I've never heard of him.
He was one of the bad guys, and he was a legit actor. He's one of my favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone. I remember.
Which one?
The one where they have the shelter and there's like the nuclear wars supposedly about to happen and all the neighbors.
Oh yeah,
he was the main guy in that one.
Yeah, Nightmare on Maple Street.
No, that was a different one.
Oh no, okay.
That was also an episode where neighbors turned on each other.
Yeah, that's what I was.
There were a lot of episodes like that.
I think I've seen the one with the neighbor, the bomb shelter though, because they kept running in.
Yeah, and they're trying to like tear the door down and stuff.
Yeah.
So shout out to Larry Gates. Let's see. Moving on past 67, just 68, 69. Oh, huge important one. Night of the Living Dead. Shout out to George A. Romero. Rip to the GOAT, George A. Romero.
Speaking of black protagonists.
Yeah, that was like... Wasn't that like the first black protagonist in a horror movie?
Yeah,
like,
I think so.
Ever?
Yeah. Especially because he was taking charge too.
He wasn't just like a side guy. He was like the one who was getting shit done more than anybody.
Yeah.
And like he was the voice of reason, Yeah. And so again, a very important moment. And I mean, the two lead characters in that movie were a black dude and a woman. Like, and it was directed by a Hispanic dude. Like.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting George A. Romero's Hispanic.
Yeah. So like. Huge deal. And like also like everybody knows that movie invented the zombie genre basically, because like every single trait that zombies have, they came from that movie.
Yeah, that movie definitely did. Like that started everything.
Yeah,
that's the catalyst for everything.
Yeah,
or at least for zombies.
And it was also again just like it was one of those movies that like when it first came out, it had its audience, but critics were pretty shocked. They didn't really, because it was like, holy shit, undead people and they're eating people? Like, what? That's not something we can stand for, but now it's just like, fuck yeah. That's what zombies are, man.
I mean, I don't know, I feel like to a degree it also could be like, especially since it was made in that counterculture type of era that, they were talking, there was like some type of, talking, like saying commentary on society is the term I was looking for.
It was also because there's been a lot of like debate over whether the last scene was meant to be commentary. I think George A. Romero said that it wasn't, but a lot of people debated over, spoiler alert, the scene at the end where the sheriff shoots him,
and then
it's like, was that meant to be like a metaphor? Because like the civil rights movement was going on at the time.
I think that. I mean, I don't think. Even if he said it wasn't, I still think it is.
Whether it was like even if he didn't mean for it to be, it might have been without him trying for it to be.
It just kind of happened, and
right?
It was like okay,
right. Let's see. I want to go ahead and pull out of this soon. It's a rich joke area. Gonna avoid that. What else is there? Huge one. Okay. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about 3 more. I just caught that. So 3 more. Briefly, I just want to mention. I doubt we'll be able to get into it that much. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Huge one.
Great movie.
Fantastic movie. Shout out to George Roy Hill.
Shout out to Paul Newman and Robert
Redford, who I'm sure we'll circle back around to later on.
Yeah.
You can't talk about the 70s without talking about them.
Yeah. The literal Sundance Kid.
Yeah, literal. And then a huge one from my biggest hero ever, Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Boy, you want to talk about something that was like, a counterculture guy's dream.
Yeah.
Take some LSD, go into a theater and watch that. That was the way to just live back then,
Yeah. I mean, imagine making a movie so good that people actually think you faked the moon landing.
I know.
Actually, people legitimately don't, think
I know.
that.
People think he faked it because of how realistic that footage looked.
Yeah.
So if I'm him, I'm taking that as a compliment for sure.
That's like the best thing you could ever want from
it. And man, just... what an insane movie. I feel like, has anybody ever watched that movie for the first time and understood the ending?
I feel like some people will say they have, but
they're lying.
Yeah, they're lying. They might have had their own understanding, but I feel like you got to see a movie at least 2 to 3 times to get the understanding of it.
For the
most part, especially for that one. For the most part, to truly,
because I was the last 10 minutes just I couldn't comprehend it at all the first time I watched it, and then later on I was like, I get it now. It's like it's brilliant, you know. It's just like really, really, really brilliant because that's what Kubrick was
exactly
to a T. And let's see. Okay, the last one I want to touch on here, because it was also very important. Midnight Cowboy.
Oh yes, God.
Again, such a shame Dustin Hoffman turned out. And Jon Voight is kind of annoying now too, a little bit.
I thought he was always kind of annoying personally. I mean,
he didn't used to be. Like nowadays, he's just like this crotchety old man, you know.
Well, I mean, back in the day, of course he wasn't, but now I feel like mid 2000s to now, he's been like crotchety old man.
Yeah, he's been that way for a while, which is unfortunate.
Him, Tommy Lee Jones, and Robert Duvall.
Tommy Lee Jones has always been. Robert Duvall is fine, I feel like.
Oh, he might not be crotchety, but
he's just very, very old.
Yeah, he plays a lot of crotchety old men in movies.
I respect Robert Duvall though for still going strong. Like,
true.
I mean, he's fucking like ancient, and he's still out there acting and shit. Like, way to keep it going, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a very important movie because you want to talk about shocking. The fact that this movie came from the 1960s is fucking astonishing. Like, I mean, it's literally about a dude who moves to New York City to become a prostitute. Like, that's for the 60s.
And then meets like a con man.
Right.
And then they kind of be friends for a little bit.
Yeah, not even really, because he's a dick to Dustin Hoffman.
He really is. It's like not friends, but like they just...
Because like Dustin Hoffman just wants to, like, he has this scene where he just imagines them down in like Florida or wherever, and he just wants them to be friends, and he wants to live the good life. And Jon Voight the whole movie is just like calling him a fucking piece of like a worthless bum and stuff, and it's like, oh come on, man, why you gotta be such an asshole to him?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was also the first X-rated movie to win Best Picture at the Oscars. That was why it was like such a big thing, because it like cemented the fact that like, okay, this breed of movie, this like shocking, risque kind of movie is here to stay, and it's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it's not just the old fucks who wanted to be more civilized aren't gonna chase it away, you know, because it just won Best Picture.
Yeah. I mean, they really, like, it did all, they opened up, because we're never going to have, like, a era where movies aren't going to be somewhat realistic now.
Right.
Or, like, somewhat, like, they've broken that boundary, I guess.
Right.
And there's not much other boundaries you can break after this point,
Basically.
Just, like, you can, I don't know. There's nothing, you can't do more, because they've already shown so much in movies now.
Right.
With, like...
at this point, there's no more boundaries you can break, really, because we've gone to, like, every point we can go to. And that's good, because it shows that, like, there's nothing left that we have to fight for to get shown on a screen. Yeah. It's like...
I mean, if you've seen a Serbian film...
I was about to mention that, because that's the most fucked up movie of all time.
Exactly. And I think that it definitely drew some, I don't know... when I watched it, it reminded me a little bit of 70s movies to a degree. Like, I could see where it took its inspiration from the New Wave.
Right. Like, the kind of very shocking art house, like Cannibal Holocaust, I think, was from the 70s.
Yeah. Because the Serbians were going through a whole thing, and was kind of like it was a metaphor for like what was going on in Serbia at the time with their censorship and everything.
Right.
And that's kind of reminiscent of what they went through with censorship, kind of like saying fuck you. And
right.
Moving on.
So I guess in a strange way, a Serbian film pays homage to
to
the cinema of the 70s.
They're just going through the same shit. Just taking a little longer to get there.
Speaking of the 70s, let's go ahead and get right into it. So we're going to take this in phases. First off, we're going to talk about just all the most important directors of the 70s. I'm sure there are some that we're not going to get to because we can't cover everybody, but just the ones that I think we feel need to be discussed here. And then we're going to cover the movies, whichever ones we haven't talked about yet at the end of talking about the directors. And then we're going to talk about the stars of the 70s and how they helped, make those movies what they were. And then we'll cover the end. So there you go. I'll put, as usual, timestamps in the description so you can, know when each part starts. All right. So I think we have to start off the 70s by talking about the biggest director that came out of the 70s, which is the biggest director of all time, Mr. Steven Spielberg. You know him, you love him. Maybe not so much lately because he's been acting like, a crotchety old man himself with the whole Netflix thing. But no matter what he does or says, we're all going to love him at the end of the day because he's fucking Steven Spielberg. He's the most likable guy in the world. So, let's see. He started off... It's funny because, he's so against watching movies on your TV now, but his first movie was a TV movie, which was Duel.
Yeah.
It did get like a theatrical release, I think, in Europe.
Really?
But,
I didn't know that. That's funny.
But like in the US, it was a TV movie, so like it's kind of weird to me that like he's on this crusade against like anything that's not in the theater now. But yeah, that was. What were you gonna say?
I was saying he's come a long way though.
He has come a very long way.
You get really because like back in the day, you get you know what I mean. You have to like pick your battles.
True. I guess he was just trying to get his foot in the door.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, let's just jump right into like if we're talking 70s Spielberg, let's just jump right into Jaws. I mean,
yeah, Jaws.
I'm sure we could have an entire episode just talking about Jaws and like what a masterpiece it is, but like
I mean everyone during the movie though thought it was going to be shit.
Did they really?
Yeah, they were having they didn't think it was going to be shit, but they were worried that it was going to be shit because Spielberg there was like a lot of problems over budget.
I did hear there were production problems, but I figured
the boat sank.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the boat
didn't
sank.
the fish puppet malfunction?
Yeah, the fish. Oh, multiple times.
Yeah,
it sank to the bottom of the ocean one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had a lot of.
Is
problems.
it still down there?
They got it. It was like that far down, like they because they're shooting like low, shallowish water.
Because that would be like an amazing like urban legend, just like the shark from Jaws is still down there. You could go see it if you wanted to.
Yeah. But no, my favorite thing is hearing Spielberg talk about it, and I've heard him talk about it twice, and he said different words on different DVD commentaries because one of them was on TV, one of them was on DVD. But the boat was sinking, and they were trying to get all the actors off first.
Yeah.
And there's the sound guy just sitting there like knee deep in water, like holding everything above his head, and he goes, "Fuck the actors, save the sound department."
That's fucking hilarious.
I was like, God, that's great.
Oh man. And yeah, the thing about Jaws is like, it's just one of the most universally appealing movies like ever made. I mean, you like anybody. It doesn't matter what your tastes are, what you're into. Everybody can get into that in some way. I mean, it's just like
it caused mass panic about sharks because I don't think
it did.
I don't think anybody was afraid of sharks until Jaws.
I mean, like maybe some people, but like that's why everybody is so afraid of sharks when they go to the beach.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did that. Thank you, Spielberg,
for
making everyone scared of sharks.
I remember I heard like something where he was at the beach after like I think the Jaws premiere. He was like in Hawaii with George, and he wouldn't go farther than his waist in the water because he was worried the sharks were going to be mad at him.
He even scared himself.
Yes, because he's scared they're mad at him
for like portraying them so negatively.
He's like, it'd be my luck I'd get eaten by a shark because of this.
I feel like that'd be the perfect way for Spielberg to go out. Like that and being abducted by aliens, I feel like would be the two best ways for him to go out.
Oh, but he's already been abducted.
Yeah, probably.
he just didn't tell everyone.
Exactly, because that would blow his cover.
Exactly.
So, and then that movie also had one of the great actors of the 70s, I feel, Roy Scheider, and Richard Dreyfuss, who also turned out to be a creep later on. Those two were great. Roy Scheider just was always just such a, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? He's an actor you could always depend on. You know? Like, you always knew what you were getting with him. Like, if you cast him in your movie, you knew he was going to do what was required. Yeah. Robert Shaw also, I think, was very, very fantastic.
Especially because, like, he was such a veteran actor.
He's Irish in real life, and you wouldn't even know it because his accent in that movie is so good.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense if, like, my favorite story is, I don't know if you've heard this one, but you know the famous Indianapolis monologue, where he's like talking about the sharks in the water.
Oh yeah.
Fun fact: it was written actually by John Milius, who was doing, and he wrote like like a 14-page thing, and then Steven Spielberg and his writers cut it down a little bit to make it less. But
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he wrote that dialogue.
Milius, he was just all over the place in the 70s, wasn't he?
He was hopping around.
That dude was fucking everywhere.
Honestly, there's a documentary, and it made me love John Milius because like the crazy shit that he did, like. There's just one thing where he was just like, I'll go into that. I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. This is good.
About Jaws, So Robert Shaw, like one of the nights they were supposed to shoot it, he wasn't there, and they had to go find him, and he was pissed drunk, like in the hotel, and they brought him in, and he did the scene totally fine.
Yeah.
Then next morning they came and he did it sober, and Steven Spielberg said he's cut it, and he cut it like he used both takes.
Yeah.
And you can't tell which one he's like is different.
That's a pro.
Yeah. I was like, really, dude?
That's
like,
insane. That's a fucking pro. Shout out to Robert Shaw.
Yeah.
And then also in the 70s, we got yet another big hit from Spielberg, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, this is going to be a bit of a controversial opinion, I'm sure. Some people who, are big Spielberg fans are going to yell at me for this one. I'm not a fan.
Really?
Of Close Encounters.
I liked that more than I liked E.T.
Really?
Yeah.
To each their
and
own,
not that I
guess.
didn't like hate E.T., I just thought Close Encounters was more like adult-ish, and like, yeah, it was supposed to be, but...
It was more adultish, but it also wasn't good, like E.T. was.
I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was creepy.
Because here's the thing, like, I appreciate a movie about Richard Dreyfuss having a mental breakdown as much as the next guy, but, like, it just wasn't very well written, because Spielberg obviously is an incredible director, not a great writer. That was one of the few times he actually wrote the script himself, and it shows.
Yeah.
Because he's not a great writer.
I mean, the scene with the kids, though, I thought were great. Like, the way he did, like, with the kid opening the door and the red, and he, like, looked up.
Again, that was good because of how it looked.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily because of how it was written. And there are parts of Close Encounters I appreciate more in hindsight after watching that Spielberg documentary that came out a few years ago. Because he said he put a lot of personal touches in there, like, that he drew from his childhood.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that part, at least. But...
I don't know, I like the ending with the sounds.
What is it, though? It's like, what the hell is that movie? Here's the thing, okay?
Francois Truffaut just sitting there, like,
Close Encounters, basically, what is it supposed to be about? Supposedly, it's about, like, a bunch of aliens that come down. It's about Richard Dreyfuss trying to, like, contact the aliens, and ultimately he decides to leave the Earth behind, and he goes on their ship, because that's where he's meant to be, right? No, that's not what it's actually about. It's about Richard Dreyfuss having a mental breakdown. That is what my theory has always been, because it makes complete sense. Throughout the entire movie, his family is basically just acting like he's crazy. He's, like, making the shape in his mashed potatoes. He's, like, obsessing over it. He, like, goes out into the desert. He goes past, like, the army guys just to get to this ship. And it's just, like, literally, he's a bad person. He leaves his family behind, just completely walks out on them and neglects them to go up in this fucking spaceship.
That's what I love about it.
It's fucking horrible.
It's so low key though, because they don't say like, oh, this is sad. They're like, oh, he's doing something cool and noble.
That's what's so shitty about it. It's because like he doesn't care. It's like, it's a good thing he's going into space. Like, fuck it, man.
Well, they thought he was crazy, and there he is going on a spaceship. So joke's on them now.
I guess so. But either way, obviously, that was a massive, massive hit. Because, of course, it was. Anything he made after Jaws, it could have been the worst thing in the world. It would have been a massive hit.
True. That started his alien thing.
Yeah. He got really into aliens after that. Maybe a little too much. Crystal Skull. But, and another one he did that isn't quite, we're not going to get into it much. Sugarland Express.
I haven't seen that, so
I haven't either. Yeah. That's why we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
That and I want to move it along. But yeah, just it was very nice when he showed up on the scene, because he was just one of these fresh young minds that just came in and helped change a lot.
Yeah. Well, what I love is like the people you got listed there, literally all the people you got listed there: Spielberg, Scorsese, Lucas, Coppola, De Palma, and I think kind of Milius, but not really.
Yeah.
But it's mainly those guys. We're all in school together.
Yeah, that's the thing that I love is like that's something I want to make a movie about someday.
There's a documentary.
There's a documentary, but like I want to like make an actual like biopic about the five of them, because like you said, it was Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese, De Palma, and Coppola. They were all just like a unit, basically. They were like the cool kids on the block,
shooting everything.
Just all collaborating together and like just hanging out in bars and like just chilling and talking about their movies and shit. And that would have just been, if I could like go back to any period in the past, like any like period of film, that's when I would go back just to be around those guys and like chilling with them and seeing their process and how they were talking. There's a story I'll get into later that I would like just kill to witness about Lucas and De Palma. I'll get into that later. I guess fuck it. We'll just go into Lucas next.
I mean,
let's talk about George Lucas.
Yeah, can I mention? I was about to say, speaking of all of them hanging out, my favorite thing is like that I've heard that I want to like. I've actually seen part of it is when George Lucas was first starting out before he did THX or anything, and Coppola came to UCLA to meet George Lucas because they were like, oh, this is like a hot shot.
Yeah,
and basically that led to Lucas shooting the documentary and like the B-roll of Coppola's film The Rain People.
Really?
Which I don't know if you know, like, heard about it.
Yeah, I know the movie.
They how they shot it. They shot it in a van.
Really?
And they went across America. Robert Duvall was in it. And they literally were just in a van. Two vans, like two like big ass like minivans. Mm-hmm. They just stored film equipment in. They go from motel to like motel, place to place, and just shoot the movie.
Really?
And they shot it all over America. Yeah. And George Lucas was there just shooting B-roll, and there's like great pictures of young George Lucas just fucking with a camera.
I would
just,
love
like,
to see
in, like,
that.
a corner, like, you know.
That's incredible. Yeah. Wow, I'd love to see that.
There's like footage of Coppola arguing with people about money, and like when he decides he's gonna do it, it's like a low shot, and he's just walking around with his telephone, just him just screaming into the phone. He's like, "Fine, fuck it, we're gonna do it ourselves. We're gonna get a fucking van. We're not gonna do it. Fuck the studio. I'm gonna do it myself." And then he just like hangs up.
That's amazing. Yeah. I would love to. Yeah, if there's footage of that.
If
that's what Lucas filmed.
Yes, that is what he filmed. He was like just. I think it was on the floor too because it was low.
The minute we are done recording this, I'm gonna look that up.
Okay, because I was about to say it's on the THX 118. Like I have like the deluxe version, and they got a whole documentary on all that shit. Like, that's going on.
Fuck yeah, I'm watching that for sure.
Yeah.
So Lucas, you know him, you love him, you probably hate him a little bit.
Most people do.
Yeah, but like, okay,
I still love him, though.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Lucas, I don't care about the prequels. I don't care about Jar Jar Binks. I don't care about any of that, okay? Did he fuck up? Yes, with the prequels. He is still one of the greatest directors of the 70s. He is still a visionary. He is still the man who gave us Star Wars.
And Howard the Duck.
If it we'll get to that.
Kinda.
Yeah, not more than kinda. Thank you, George, for Howard the Duck.
My hero.
There was a shot of duck tits in that movie.
I actually haven't seen it.
Straight
honestly.
up, there is a scene where there is a topless female duck in the movie. But yeah, so a funny story about George Lucas and De Palma when all those guys were hanging out. So when Lucas did Star Wars, he was like basically, I think he screened some of it for them, or he was telling them the basic plot. No, he did screen it for them. And they all came and saw it, and like Spielberg and Coppola and Scorsese, they all loved it. They were like, yeah, good job, George. But De Palma was just sitting there with this look on his face the whole time. And then they get to a restaurant later, and Lucas is like, well, Brian, why don't you tell me what you don't like about it? And he's just like, De Palma just like goes on this tirade where he's just like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, you need like to explain what the fuck is going on. You need to like have some kind of context so people understand it. And I'm just like, the image of De Palma just lighting up George Lucas in a restaurant booth and Lucas just sitting there just like red as can be in the face, just like trying to hold himself back from like retaliating is the funniest fucking image. I just would love to see how that went down. And that's why the opening crawl happened. De Palma wrote the opening crawl because he was like, you need to explain what the fuck is going on. And
at least he offered constructive criticism. It was destructive because, like, at first it's like he seems destructive, but then he's like, "Here, let me fix the problem for you."
Right,
and then he gives him the opening call.
It was constructive criticism delivered in a destructive way.
Yeah, it really.
He could have been a bit less of a dick about it.
Yeah,
but that is one of my favorite stories I've ever heard.
Yeah, after watching the De Palma documentary, I think he's just a little neurotic in general.
I've heard he is, because every time I've seen footage from him, it seems like he's very soft-spoken, just kind of doesn't like talking very much. Yeah. I can see him as being like the quiet guy in the group who just doesn't talk that much.
And when he does talk, it's always like kind of pretentious shit, but you're like, oh, well, it's right, you know?
He's earned the right to like kind of strut his stuff a little bit. He made Scarface. So
he's made a lot of movies that are like Carrie,
right?
Like, Mission Impossible one,
which
started the
exactly. That one wasn't very good, but
I liked
it did start a franchise.
I liked The Masks because that was original.
Yeah. But Lucas, okay, obviously Star Wars. Again, we could do an entire episode on Star Wars. THX.
I love that movie.
THX is actually the one Lucas movie I haven't seen.
It's very smart, in my opinion.
Is it?
I think it is because it's so weird that it came from the guy who did Star Wars, but it makes sense that it came from him out of college,
right?
Because I've seen the short film; they have it on the thing, and it's like the short film's it's obviously a college short film,
right?
But then the movie is so much better, obviously, but it's just so it's about society, and it's really a commentary on religion and everything,
right?
But it's such a commentary on all that, and there's so little dialogue, and it's just such weird not graphic, but there's a scene where he's just sitting there watching people get beaten, and that's a TV channel, and it's violence. And then there's one
early commentary.
And then nice. There's literally 3 channels: one violence, one for a naked woman dancing, and then the other one's educational.
That's really smart.
Yeah, he really did that before everything.
That's really smart.
And there's
you see what I mean? Give this man credit.
That's what I'm saying.
Give this man credit.
The whole movie, and then the ending shot is just so beautiful.
Yeah,
it's so good, and it reminds me of Apocalypse Now in a way, in a good way.
Which we'll cover this in a minute. He almost directed that.
Yeah, which that's made sense to me because I was like, wow, that's But it was very funny because also Robert Duvall, amazing in that movie. He did get killer in that.
And so there's that. That was his first movie, and afterwards he did the earliest one I've seen from him, which is American Graffiti, one of my favorite movies ever. Just
brilliant, multiple storyline movie.
And me, I'm a big, I don't know why, but for some reason I really like the whole multiple storylines intersecting kind of thing.
I love that movie.
That's a big cinematic thing that I really like when it's employed. And that movie does it perfectly.
Yeah.
All 4 of the storylines in that movie to me are just as interesting, just as Ron Howard's, I guess, is a little bit less interesting than the others because it's not, I guess, as much of a focus, but it's still nice.
Yeah.
And
I definitely breeded a lot of other movies that were similar in tone after that, Dazed and Confused, Fast Times.
Right, because you look at every coming of age movie that came after that, most of the directors who made them say that American Graffiti was one of their inspirations.
Yeah.
Because American Graffiti is one of the greatest coming of age movies. I mean, it's just he obviously deserves more credit as a writer. So do the 2 people who wrote nearly all his movies, Willard Huck and Gloria Katz, who just recently died.
Oh, wow, I didn't know they died.
Well, she did.
But
yeah, and speaking of them, they did rewrites on Star Wars.
That makes sense.
Which,
I know they did a lot of stuff for him.
Yeah, they wrote Temple of Doom. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so shout out to them too. And also, American Graffiti, just trying to think of
another good soundtrack movie. Sorry.
Lots of great songs on that one. Lots of retro,
especially
because it's set in the 50s.
They got Wolfman Jack in the movie.
They did.
They did,
so and he actually played a major part in the story.
He really did.
And it really always confused me how Richard Dreyfuss in that movie looked like a 17-year-old kid, and then two fucking years later in Jaws looked like a 30-year-old man.
Yeah, I know.
How the fuck did he age 15 years in 2 years?
Yeah, he was in The Graduate too.
Oh, he had a cameo. That's right.
Do you want me to call the cops?
I remember the first time I saw The Graduate, I wanted to punch him. Yeah. I was like, fuck you, call the cops. Right. Who the fuck do you think you are? But yeah, and then obviously Star Wars was the biggest, literally at the time it was the biggest fucking hit in history.
Oh yeah. I mean, shit.
And I swear, every time I hear about how he didn't think it was going to make any money.
Yeah, there was a lot of worry about that.
Nobody involved with the movie thought it was going to do well at all.
Yeah.
George Lucas was literally on vacation when it premiered. He didn't even stick around to see how it did. He was like, oh, it's going to bomb. I'm just going to go on vacation and just kind of take my mind off it. And then he comes back and it's like, so you just made the biggest fucking movie ever.
Right.
And he was like, what? So, legend. We're talking about another legend next. Martin Scorsese. Big dog. And he was on fire in the 70s too.
Oh
fucking, yeah. I mean, this wasn't even his first 70s movie, but I'm talking about it first anyway. Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
Fuck me, what a movie.
Oh, yeah, no. Especially, he did take a lot of inspiration, especially from the French New Wave people, too, in that movie. That makes a very good way,
That makes sense, because Scorsese has always been very mindful of foreign cinema. Mm-hmm. Like, you can notice... because he's done remakes of foreign movies before. Like, that's what The Departed was.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you can tell.
There's actually a scene that's, like... where with the Alka-Seltzer tablet just, fizzing up in the water.
Yeah.
There's another scene in a foreign movie that is, like, literally the exact
That's
same.
a very French, like, old New Wave Frenchy kind of shot.
Yeah, because it's like it's like feelings bubbling and all that, like,
exactly.
And then, but, just water. But, and I'm sure people at the time, because, like, when I first saw it, I was like, why is there a shot of this? And then as I got older, I was like, I get it.
Yeah. And he's just, obviously... That movie was a big deal, and it was one of the greatest movies. Also, another one of the greatest movies ever, I would say. One of his still not his best though. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, still not his best.
It's one of the greatest movies ever, and it's still not his best one.
Yeah.
I guess some people may think it is, and, like, I wouldn't even argue if you said it was, but, like, personally, I think...
he's got so many good movies that, I know. I don't understand, like... Because, like, Taxi Driver's good for this reason. Goodfellas is good for this reason. Departed's good for this reason.
Right.
They're all different reasons why they're so good. Mm-hmm. But still, like,
it's because he is an incredible fucking director.
Clearly he knows what he's doing.
I mean, like, he's had, fucking 30 movies at this point? Something like that?
Maybe more, I think, honestly.
Like, and almost every one of them has been good, at least, if not great.
Yeah, good at least.
Dude's got one of the best track records, like, of anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was one of his best ones.
Yeah, like, even his non-good movies, like, his not, like, best movies are still good. Like, there's not, you're not going to look at it and be like, that's shit. You're going to be like, I enjoyed it. Not his best, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. Like, that's basically how I felt about Shutter Island, where it was just like, this isn't his best work, but I liked it.
Yeah. Have you seen Who's That Knocking at My Door?
I haven't.
I have it on DVD if you want to borrow it.
Oh.
It's really good. It's very, very Frenchy, very French New Wavy. Like,
is it?
Yeah, there's like a dream sequence that I think, I want to say the studio made him put it in, but there was like, I don't know if he put it at the end to make it sell more, which I think might have been the thing. He made it wanted to sell more, so I put a nude like dream sequence in there with Harvey Keitel and these like naked girls, and like they're all naked, like Harvey Keitel's dick's all out and shit.
Like you can see it.
Yeah,
that's the second movie where Harvey Keitel's dick has been out.
Bad Lieutenant too, but yeah.
My goodness,
there's a lot of like very like far away shots, like just I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Wow, it sounds very good. Yeah,
it's his first movie, so it's like very low budget. Right. So you can tell it's low budget because the audio's kind of shake, like echoey and stuff. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then also another big one from him from the '70s, Mean Streets.
Mean Streets. The Robert De Niro's.
That was one of De Niro's best performances I've ever seen.
I don't know if it was his debut, but it definitely was
very, very early.
Very early. Like his
he was
breakout performance.
He was young as fuck in that movie.
Yeah.
It was weird. He played one of the most hateable characters I've ever seen in that movie. I wanted to fucking just kill him the whole time. Yeah.
It's wild that he got so thin, like... Because, like, I was looking at, in De Palma, they showed, like, his short with Robert De Niro in it.
Yeah.
And Robert De Niro was, like, Jake LaMotta, Raging Bull. Big.
Right.
And I was like, it's weird he was kind of, like, big and stocky, because he got thin really fucking fast.
Yeah.
Because, like, I know, like, 3 years later he did Mean Streets, and then...
How about, we're learning so much about young Robert De Niro today. Something about that movie, too, it was very important for, like, independent movies, because that movie was, like... Not a huge hit, but a fairly big success.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I actually don't remember how much money it made. I don't think it made, like, a super huge amount, but I think
word of mouth back then was more important, like, critic reviews than, like, necessarily... I mean, money, of course, was important, no doubt.
But, like, it was a big deal for independent movies, because, like, it was made on a really small budget. And you can tell when you watch it. And yet it was... a pretty big... It was what, like, established Scorsese.
Established, De Niro. I mean, I think Keitel even got, like, kind of big off that movie, too.
Well, here's the thing...
it was already kind of big.
Here's the thing that I hate about, like, here's the thing. Harvey Keitel was the lead in that movie. Mm-hmm. But, like, De Niro's the one that went on to become the bigger star. Like, I've always hated the fact that everybody just kind of overlooks Keitel, because, like...
I mean, I feel like people back then knew who he was, but the newer audience has no fucking clue.
Yeah.
Like, they knew Robert De Niro, of course, because of, like...
I mean, and Harvey Keitel is a legend, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, not quite as much as I feel like he should be, considering his body of work.
Yeah. I think he'll get more, like, I guess, recognition when he dies. No offense to... Like, I love him, but That's the truth. They always get more recognition when they're dead.
That's true for everybody, basically. Yeah.
Because people will be like, oh, Harvey Keitel died, and then they'll name the movies, and people will be like, that's him?
Right.
Oh, he's the wolf. Oh,
and he's he's Mr. White.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, either way, I mean, it's not like nobody knows him. He's definitely a legend. It's just like, it bothers me how, like, you know, he like in that movie in particular, everybody talks about De Niro, everybody talks about, and it's like, hey, Keitel's the lead. He's the one doing like almost as good of a job. Like, okay, De Niro was better, but still,
yeah,
you know, it's like, put some respect.
Put some respect on the Keitel.
On the Keitel.
Yeah.
All right, who we got next? Oh boy, Francis Ford Coppola. Now, my boy. This was a motherfucker who ruled the 70s
with an iron fist.
With an iron fucking fist.
He was the Infinity Gauntlet. He had Apocalypse Now, The Godfather.
He basically did have an Infinity Gauntlet of movies. Because this motherfucker's first movie of the decade was The Godfather.
Yep.
Which was the greatest fucking movie ever, basically.
Yeah. People still talk, you know what I mean?
People still call that the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah.
Which it basically is. I mean
clearly. It's like... They took such risks, I think, with that movie, but it paid off, like,
and that movie almost didn't even get made. There was so much drama behind the scenes, like...
Francis Ford Coppola's a little bit of a drama bitch, though.
I don't know, like,
you had the Apocalypse Now and Godfather. Apocalypse Now was such, like, a dramatic, like, drama...
Apocalypse Now, that wasn't necessarily his fault. That was just, like... a situation that spiraled out of control and no one could contain it.
Well, I'm not saying it was his fault. I'm just saying he had to deal with all that, though. Like, it's
he
still
did have to deal with a lot.
To his name. So, like, you're like, Francis doing it again. Or at least back then, I'm sure that's what people were thinking.
It is crazy, though, how many chaotic film shoots he had back then.
It might have killed... Honestly, Apocalypse Now almost killed him.
It almost killed him. He threatened to kill himself during the making of that movie, I remember.
Yeah.
And then, like, Martin Sheen had a heart attack, and, I think it was Sam Bottoms who, like, had a fucking parasite crawl up his...
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of crazy shit.
And like Dennis Hopper was hooked on heroin, and it was just like everybody...
Marlon Brando didn't want to learn the lines.
He was like, he had gained a bunch of weight, and he didn't want to learn any of his lines, and it was like the craziest fucking shoots.
Yeah.
I really want to see the documentary on that, The Heart of Darkness.
Yeah.
I would
that was the
love
name of the
to
book,
see.
so that's why.
Yeah. So, and obviously Apocalypse Now, I would also say, is in like the top 10 greatest movies of all time. Like,
yeah.
I mean, holy shit, you want to talk about a master... It's so crazy, because, like, the production was so chaotic, but it, like...
The movie came out
They managed to salvage it so well. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, and, like... Even Brando, with all his problems, his performance in that movie was outstanding.
Yeah.
And that's another example of, like, a leading man getting looked over, because everybody always talks about Brando. Brando's only in, like, the last 30 minutes.
Martin Sheen.
It's like a 3-hour movie, and Martin Sheen is the lead through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he was, like...
He was going crazy.
He was electric, man.
Yeah.
And what's the story about the scene where he, like attacked Francis Ford Coppola and like broke a mirror?
That was the opening scene. So that was his birthday.
Yeah.
He was pissed fucking, like, he was drunk as hell.
Yeah.
And they had to do the scene where he had, like, you know, the crazy mental breakdown in his room.
Yeah.
So they just basically set up the camera in that one position, and he just started filming him, like, kind of going just wild, just doing these weird shit.
Right.
And then all of it, like, you know, at one point he just gets crazy, punches the fucking mirror, his hand's bleeding.
Yeah.
He starts jumping all over Coppola, and then, you know,
Right.
they don't show that, but of course. But
Right.
then he's just going crazy, and you just see him, like, crying and, like, flipping out in the movie.
It works.
And that's because he was just gone on his birthday, just having a good time.
Yeah.
But having a mental breakdown, too.
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
And yeah, Godfather also had a lot of problems because, like, the studio did not want Brando. They did not want Pacino. Like, because Pacino was a nobody at that point. He was just this 20-something-year-old guy who had never done anything before. And they were like, who the fuck is this kid? Get him out of here.
Yeah.
And Brando, obviously, was a big drama queen. He was the hardest person to work with ever.
I mean, James Caan and Robert Duvall as supporting characters were great, though.
Yeah, the whole cast of that movie, it's a testament to how great that movie is and how perfectly cast it is, when basically every single one of the main actors went on to be a legend.
Yeah.
Like Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, Robert Duvall, James Caan, Talia Shire, John Cazale, Abe Vigoda.
John Cazale, that's the guy's name I was trying to remember.
Yeah, and like every single one of them basically became a legend later on. And Richard S. Castellano was also very good. There were so many actors in that movie.
There were a lot, yeah.
But yeah, so there's that, and Coppola was basically having to fight the studio every day. the real life mob tried to shut it down, and Frank Sinatra, who obviously was involved with the mob very heavily, he like was calling for it to be shut down.
Dang.
And it was just like, you know, they had everything going against them, but just like with Apocalypse Now, they managed to make it into one of the greatest things ever somehow.
Work out so well, yeah.
I don't know, like Coppola has a talent for like just being able to perform under stress.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how he does it. It's crazy.
And he had a great script written by John Milius.
No, it was Mario Puzo.
No, my bad. We were talking about Godfather. I was thinking Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, Milius.
I hopped back to Apocalypse Now.
Milius did do Apocalypse Now. That's right.
Yeah, no, Godfather. There's actually something I was about to say. I just saw footage recently on Twitter of Marlon Brando reading the cue cards because he didn't want to remember his lines either.
Right.
And you can just see in the scene his eyes just drift off, and you think like, oh, that's acting, but no, he's just reading lines. He's just reading.
Yeah, because and you can't even tell.
Yeah, because you think, oh, he's being dramatic because you just see him like being all moody, like just like I'm not paying attention to what this guy's saying, but then you realize, nah, he's just looking at his lines because then he looks over immediately and just says what he needs to say, and then looks back out.
Yeah,
and I'm like. Wow, that's actually kind of funny how they covered that up, though.
And it's amazing, because, like, that's a pro. He knows how to make it work. He knows how to make it look natural, you know?
Yeah.
Another funny Brando story from that movie is, like, there are a couple. Like, the scene where they're, like, he's in the stretcher or whatever, and they're carrying him up the stairs. He, like, put a bunch of cement bricks in the bed to weigh it down, so when they had to carry it, it would, like, hurt their backs a lot.
Oh, my God.
And, like, the famous scene where he gets up and slaps... Johnny Fontaine, where he's like, "You're gonna act like a man." He improvised that.
Oh my God.
And it was like, you could tell because like the actor playing Johnny Fontaine is just like genuinely shocked. And yeah, so that was pretty cool. Just all the stories from that set. And what's even crazier is like this motherfucker made a sequel that was even better almost.
Yeah.
Like I personally like the first one more. But if you want to say the second one is better, I'm not going to argue.
It's not, yeah.
Because they're both perfect movies.
And then made the third one. I mean, I actually haven't seen the third one.
You've never seen the third one?
I've seen 1 and 2. I've seen scenes from the third one. I've seen, like, scenes with Andy Garcia and Sofia Coppola. And, like, the one, I think it was, like, he's got his chest hair out and he's just standing with the gun.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a Godfather movie? But, then, like, I was a kid watching it on AMC during Thanksgiving, so.
Yeah, they do that every year on AMC.
Yeah.
I think I woke up from... The thing about Godfather 3 is, like... I haven't seen it in a very long time, so I might feel differently about it now. I've always defended Godfather 3. I always liked it. I always said it's not as good as the first two, obviously, but it's still a solid movie. I would have to watch it now to really have an opinion on it. One thing I can say is everything you've heard about Sofia Coppola is true. Mm-hmm. She is as bad as they say. But, like, I feel like she probably doesn't care because she's not an actress.
Yeah,
you know.
That's true.
I feel like
she definitely is a director.
I feel like she doesn't care about any of the hate. She's like, I agree. I'm not an actress. I didn't do a very good job. They called me at the last minute. I did it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sofia Coppola, I saw an interview with her where she was talking about just all the things Francis taught her, and I thought that was very interesting. You know, where like he would like tell her stories of like making movies back in the '70s, and it like helped her out when she was just starting out as a director. And I'm just like, isn't that nice? Like the father-daughter director relationship.
That's gotta be an edge up too, as you got your dad like giving you pointers.
Right,
like
amazing. Who better to have as a father, like if you're an aspiring filmmaker, than Francis Ford Coppola?
Yeah,
like
it's like you got your master class when you wake up.
Exactly. Like every day you're in the class in your house.
And and the teacher's your best friend because he's also your dad, so he's not gonna like kill you, or like be like fuck you, but,
or be like J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, where he's just like pushing you too hard. Moving on, let's see. The last member of that whole crew, Brian De Palma.
Yep.
He was like obviously his best movie from the 70s that I've seen is Carrie. Carrie's an interesting movie to me because like that movie is so often considered a horror movie. To me, the last 20 minutes are a horror movie.
Yeah.
The rest of it is basically just a coming-of-age high school drama.
With a little bit of telekinesis involved. But not as much as the end, but like they kind of hint at it.
Every now and then you get like a spooky scene where she like does some telekinetic shit.
And it's like,
but it's not like and her crazy ass mom, you know.
Yeah. I mean, what horror movie opens? You know, I know what horror movie, like, especially like it was new back then, because what movie opens with like a girl getting her period?
I know.
Like,
see, this is what I'm talking about. Like this is the kind of shit that we were experimenting with at this point.
Yeah.
And
De Palma was just brave as fuck about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, because De Palma has always been a very brave director. Because, like, you know, he's faced a lot of criticism over the course of his career for the shit he's put in his movies. Yeah. And he always just faces it head on. He's always just like, fuck you, you know?
Yeah.
I'm doing it the way I want to do it, and, you know, and it usually turns out good. Not so much these days. He's fallen off a bit these days.
Well, yeah, but...
But that happens to a lot of great directors, you know, where the later they get into their careers, it just sort of... You know, they just sort of...
Because I feel like they lose touch with... Some of them refuse to evolve. And they just don't want to, like...
Well, that, and also just, like, you know, they've already proven themselves, and they don't feel like they have to prove themselves quite so much anymore, so they kind of lose their edge, and they start taking projects that, you know, might not be the best projects, but they don't care, because, like, fuck you, I'm so-and-so.
Yeah, I'm doing what I want to do,
you know? I'm like, fuck you, I'm Brian De Palma, I made Carrie, I made Scarface, I made, you know... I made The Untouchables. It's like...
Yeah, go on. There's, like, even the small shit he's made, like, I saw Blowout.
Oh, yeah?
Love Blowout. De Palma did an amazing job with that movie.
That's one of his I'd love to see. Another one of his I'd love to see from the 70s. I don't know if you've seen it. Phantom of the Paradise?
Yes, I love Phantom of the Paradise.
Is it?
I have seen that multiple times.
I've heard that's one of those, like...
It's campy, but in a great way.
I've heard it's... Yeah.
It's intentionally campy. It's like a musical, but it's also like a very, like... I don't know. It's like a 70s... It's like a very 70s, like, pop... You know, it's like about, like... pop, you know, like boy bands and shit taking over.
Right.
And it's very, like, it's very Phantom of the Opera, you know, obviously it's Phantom of the Paradise.
Right.
But it's very, like, I don't know, campy. Because, like, they have a Psycho scene where they imitate Psycho. Except for he opens it and it's a toilet plunger and he slams, it's not a spoiler.
That's hilarious.
He kill him. He hits him with a toilet plunger and it's like, he's like, ah, and then he hits the toilet plunger over his mouth and it's like,
I've heard that's one of those movies. It's basically like a movie that your favorite director would like, you know, where it's like, it's very much like a low-key, like, niche movie that, like, your favorite director might recommend or something like that. And I like those kinds of movies.
Paul Williams is in it. Great.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he plays like literally a song guy because that's funny because he is.
Right.
But he plays like a record producer who like takes people's songs and like, you're not takes people's songs, but like takes their souls and shit, and it's good shit. I don't know. He plays like a real creepy, like a devil kind of guy.
That's funny.
And
I always love it when Paul Williams shows up in movies.
He's great. Honestly, he's great in it. He honestly is the best actor in my opinion.
Really?
Like even William Finley does a great job.
Yeah.
As you know, but I like Paul Williams a lot, so he just kills it as the villain. When he showed up in Baby Driver, I was like, whoa.
That was weird, right? That was weird.
But it makes sense because it's a music movie.
Right.
So him being, you know.
Right. The weirdest thing he's ever done was when he was the Penguin in Batman the Animated Series.
He was?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
That's how I know him primarily. Oh, here's a guy who kind of came in at the tail end of the 70s, but was a very important part nonetheless with what he contributed. Mr. Ridley Scott. Now, there's a legend.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And it's like, obviously, you know, the big one he did in the 70s was Alien, which, I mean... Obviously,
we could talk about that all day, but everyone's talked about that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I mean, like, what's there to say about Alien except for like, it's one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever. It is just a masterpiece of like suspense because of the way you never fully see the alien. I thought that was a very brilliant choice. It has probably one of the greatest ensemble casts in a movie, where like, it feels like they're all useful. It feels like they all, you know. Do their thing, and that one was very important because a major sci-fi movie with a female protagonist, like that wasn't a thing that had ever happened before, or if it did, nobody really knew about it.
It was
the first like mainstream, you know, and Ripley was supposed to be a dude at first, which is the crazy thing.
Makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember like who decided to make Ripley a woman. But whoever that person was, thank you very much, because that was one of the best decisions ever. Especially since, like, you know, Sigourney Weaver was better for that than anybody could have been. So yeah, and who knows where she would be without that movie?
Very true.
So Sigourney Weaver's a treasure. Shout out to Sigourney Weaver. And have you seen? Because the only other movie that Ridley Scott did during that time was The Duelist. Have you seen that?
No, but I've heard of it because it's Harvey Keitel and then another person. and it's like period piece, which is kind of
I've heard it's compared a lot to one of my favorite movies ever, of the 70s, Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, because it looks like Barry Lyndon.
Yeah,
because they got the candle lit and everything, and Barry Lyndon.
And that's the idea of Ridley Scott doing a period piece. That's kind of bizarre.
It was just I've never seen it. I've seen a trailer for it in front of. Didn't we see the trailer for it in a movie night?
Did we?
We had a movie night, and I think we were watching some movie. I think it might have been like Dirty Harry or something. I don't know what it was, but there was a trailer for The Duelists before it, and I remember because we were like, "What movie is this? What the fuck?" Ridley Scott and Harvey Keitel. I've seen a trailer for it. I thought it was one of the
Maybe we
nights.
did. I don't remember.
Because I remember seeing the trailer. I'd never seen it, but I've seen the trailer for it.
But yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I would like to, because again, Ridley Scott doing a period piece. And I'd also like to point out this is at least the third reference to Harvey Keitel that we've had so far in this episode.
He's everywhere.
Shout out to the GOAT Harvey Keitel, you know?
Yeah.
Fucking love that guy. He's going to be in The Irishman later this year. I'm super ready for it.
I'm a little...
Go look up Harvey Keitel's IMDb. Watch anything that he's in, especially the things we've mentioned so far.
My favorite thing about The Irishman, though, is the pictures with Robert De Niro and those big fucking boots.
The lifts
he's got on are it's so funny.
I know. Because he's like, this is Pacino and this is him all the way up here.
Yeah. I'm like, they're really going for it.
Let's see. Moving on. I'm going to go a bit out of order here because... this is my script. I wrote it. I don't have to follow it. I can do whatever the fuck I want with it. Let's talk about who I want to talk about most next. My motherfucking, hero, one of my biggest heroes ever, Sidney Lumet. One of the greatest directors who ever lived. Don't at me. Not that you would, because who would disagree with that? Should I just address the fact that the fucking cut off? I'm not even going to attempt to, fucking...
I think we should address the fact that just be like...
Okay. So, bit of an interruption there. My computer, being the piece of shit that it is, cut off halfway through the episode. So, yeah, now we're picking it back up. And that's the reason for the interruption. But, anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Sidney Lumet. He was the fucking greatest. Am I right or am I right?
You are right.
Seriously though, this dude in the 70s, was just at the top of his game. He was like a guy who kind of came from the 50s and was around. That was when he became relevant. But he had a career renaissance in the 70s. And that was just every year for most of the 70s. He had some hugely important film that he got out. 73, Serpico, 74, Murder on the Orient Express, 75, Dog Day Afternoon, 76, Network, 77, Equus. The dude was just untouchable. And most of those movies I just named are some of the best fucking movies you'll ever see. Network is... I would put that probably in the top 10 best movies of all time.
Still relevant today.
40 years later, it is still timeless.
Yeah.
It still applies to everything today. And I swear, one of my absolute, again, probably top 10 or maybe even top 5, favorite scenes in a movie ever is the scene where Ned Beatty takes him into the room and gives him that big ass speech. I remember the first time watching that, I was just completely, the look on my face was the look on Peter Finch's face in the scene. Just, completely stunned and shocked and holy shit, I didn't see this coming. You've taken me off guard, Ned Beatty.
Yeah.
And the whole, also...
Is he related to Warren Beatty? Oh, no, that's an off. I just thought about that.
I don't think he is.
Because they kind of look alike. I don't know.
They both came from that time, too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know. Just sorry. I just had to.
No, yeah, that's a good question. It would make sense, kind of, but they're so opposite.
True. Yeah. Good actors though. Both good actors.
Both great actors.
Very underappreciated, or at least Ned Beatty is specifically. I think.
I don't think so. I feel like people appreciate Ned Beatty enough.
I don't know. Not now. I don't know. Maybe back then they did.
Young people don't know who Ned Beatty is, but that's true of a lot of people.
Too. cinephiles, but
there's a joke on an American Dad episode about Ned Beatty that I always think about.
Really? Oh shit.
Yeah, where Roger goes like, "Poor Ned Beatty. He can play Rudy's dad all he wants, but when we picture him, we see him getting rammed in the woods." In Deliverance.
That's true.
Another great 70s movie, Deliverance.
Very true. God, Deliverance was so good. Like
yeah,
the opening scene with the banjos,
the whole thing, man. Just like
yeah.
The whole movie was, and that was obviously what made a star out of Burt Reynolds, which rip to the late great Burt Reynolds, one of the greatest stars of the 70s.
Unfortunately, he couldn't be in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I know. I'm so fucking sad about that. Like, Bruce Dern is gonna kill it. I have no doubt. But like, that would have been the perfect. Like, that was supposed to be a comeback part for him. That would have been a perfect comeback part for him. But like, it also, if he was going to die after doing it, like, it would have been a great final role.
Movie, yeah.
But now he'll never get the chance. And that, because when I heard he was in that, oh man, I got so excited. I was like, Burt Reynolds in a Tarantino movie. It's like so crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he
I mean,
was,
that cast, like Burt Reynolds with that cast.
with Ned Beatty, John Voight, Ronnie Cox, everybody. Oh, you meant the cast of Once Upon? Yeah,
I did. But also, I was thinking about the cast of Deliverance earlier too.
Yeah,
like the fact that like Burt Reynolds, John Voight, like Ned Beatty, and then the Ronnie Cox, I guess, was the squeal-eyed pig guy.
Ronnie Cox was the fourth.
Oh, the fourth dude. I forgot about the fourth dude.
Yeah,
he dies early, doesn't he?
So what?
It's been a while since.
Yeah, he dies like way earlier than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Actually, he's the only one that dies.
I thought Ned Beatty died.
No.
And Burt Reynolds? I thought Burt
Reynolds got hurt.
I thought Burt Reynolds and John Voight were the only two to make it alive.
No, they all made it back, but Burt Reynolds got like really hurt.
Okay.
And so they had to like kind of just lug him the rest of the way. You know, he was like injured.
Yeah.
And then he like got put in the hospital, and it was just John Voight and Ned Beatty.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great one. But back to Lumet, like God, like, okay, so there's Network, there's, oh my God, Dog Day Afternoon.
Such a good movie.
Fucking
Such an underrated movie. Not underrated, but like I don't know. It's so wild when I think about it, how good it is.
It's like, again, like top 20. Who can you say who has like 2 movies in like the top 20, 30 greatest movies of all time?
Yeah.
There are like maybe like just a handful of directors you can say that about. And he's one of them. Like,
yeah, I mean, Godfather. I don't know. Was Godfather after that?
That was before.
Before?
Part 2 was the year before Dog Day Afternoon.
So Godfather was before. So it was a reunion of Pacino and Cazale.
Yeah. That was that was their third time working together.
Damn. That's true. Oh, because Deer Hunter too. Wait, no, not.
No, that was De Niro.
De Niro, yeah, De Niro.
Yeah, we'll get into Deer Hunter later.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then God, Serpico. It's been a long time since I've watched Serpico, so I don't really remember it that well. But I remember it being a pretty solid movie. I feel like it's way better than I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta like go back and watch it again. But like one thing I do remember for sure is that Pacino was fucking on point as usual.
Yeah. He was on point all during the 70s.
Oh God,
There's a movie I want to see that I haven't seen called Panic in Needle Park.
That's like the very first thing he ever did on film. Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks. I've seen like the Netflix little like trailer for it, and I added it to my list, but never watched it.
Yeah.
But it looks so good.
Yeah.
Like he looks good in it. Yeah.
I mean he's amazing in
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Like what isn't he good in?
Actually, I know what he's not good in.
Jack
Just
and
go with
Jill.
it. Oh no, fuck! It's Jack and Jill that he's in. Sorry,
Yeah.
I get. Those
It's not
two
that he's
mixed up.
bad in that though. It's just that like look at what he's given to work with.
You gotta play the Dunkin' Donuts scene in just your head though. When you see that.
Even he in the movie acknowledges like this must never be seen by anybody.
But it's beings. Yeah, that's the problem. That is.
He's actually talking about Jack and Jill.
Yeah, that's true. That was actually not scripted.
Yeah.
They just threw it.
He was just telling that to Adam Sandler after watching a rough cut of Jack and Jill.
Yeah.
And then Murder on the Orient Express, another great movie.
Haven't seen that one. I've seen the new one, but not the.
The new one
old
sucks ass.
I thought it was alright.
That's because you haven't seen that story done right.
Yeah, I guess I haven't seen
The new one sucks ass. The old one is just a masterclass in directing because, like, this was just something that Lumet was always so good at doing. Like with 12 Angry Men, where, like, that entire movie was just in one room.
Yeah.
But despite that, because of his brilliant camera work, he didn't make it feel like it was just in one room. He, like, used the space. All the angles were just right to where, like, you know, he moved around. He used the whole space, and he didn't make it feel claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And he does the same thing here because the whole movie's on a train. You know, and it would be so easy for it to feel claustrophobic. And he makes it work because, like, again, just through the camera angles and the brilliant direction. And so if you want to, like, you know, just watch how to direct, you know, like there's some movies where it's like, if you're a writer and you really want like a masterclass of writing, watch this.
It, like Chinatown. Yeah.
Right, like Chinatown. And then if you just want a masterclass in direct, first of all, any Sidney Lumet movie will suffice.
Yeah.
But this one in particular, like, definitely will help you out, just because, like, if you can tackle a movie like that, you can do anything.
True.
So, like,
I love, like, movies in one setting.
Yeah, like bottle movies.
Yeah, bottle movies.
Yeah, like very you know, tricky to pull off. But if you can, then it's a very interesting experience.
Very compelling, yeah.
And it's something to marvel at. You know, just the technical prowess.
Yeah.
Here's another person I want to talk about. I haven't seen too much of his work, but we got to highlight him because he's an important director from the 70s, Mr. William Friedkin.
Yes.
He, it's weird with Friedkin, because, like, he was prominent throughout, like, all of the 70s, but it, like, really was just the beginning where he just was fucking on fire. Because he started off with The French Connection.
A brilliant movie.
Has the greatest car chase scene you will ever watch.
Because of how real it was.
Yeah, because, like, literally, he just told me this earlier. There was an actual part in that car chase scene where Gene Hackman actually crashed into a real driver who, like, ignored the sign saying that there was a film shoot. And so it's, like, real part of it. So that's what, like, part of what makes it great. I think it might have been
a stunt driver that crashed into him. I think it was on the wide shot.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But still, I mean,
it's still crazy, though.
Still crazy.
And just what this is such a there's one scene in the movie that I have to highlight that I'm sure if anybody could pick one scene from this movie to highlight, it would be this one. The famous scene where they're going over the bridge and he shows up and he's waving at him. Fucking just like, throughout that entire scene, I was just like, what the fuck is the play here? You're just gonna let them do the deal and get away? Right. And then, like, they drive over the bridge and, like, what the fuck is the plan? Yeah. And then there they are, and it's like, what a payoff.
Yeah.
You know? What a payoff.
I have not seen The French Connection 2, though. I don't know if it's any good.
Or
not any good, but, like, if it's nearly as good.
I figured it wouldn't be, but actually I heard it is. It's, like, actually one of those few rare, like, good sequels to a classic like that.
Interesting.
Because one thing I don't like is that Roy Scheider apparently isn't in it.
Well, yeah, you can't get him. I mean, I guess he did Jaws 2, so.
Oh, which is not a good sequel.
I mean, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying he did at least one sequel. He realized maybe not do another sequel. Or I don't know if that was before or after.
Right.
But
I think French Connection was like 77. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It was a while later.
Yeah, I think he realized probably don't do a sequel.
Yeah, that was the lesson he learned from Jaws 2. Like, you know what, actually? No sequels for me. And obviously, like, we can't talk about Friedkin without talking about The Exorcist. Like, I can't talk about it much because I have refused to watch that movie my entire life because, you know, I don't need that. I don't need the nightmares. But, I
mean, it's probably not as bad as it was back to the 70s. I mean, I've seen it, like, not recently, but I've seen it, like, you know.
Yeah.
It's scary, but it's not like, I wasn't, like, shit my pants scary. I was like, ooh, that's cool. But I wasn't, like, even, like, the slightest bit actually creeped out to a degree. Yeah. Because I guess I've seen enough behind-the-scenes footage to, like, be like, oh, yeah, it's the spinny head and the doll and stuff. I mean, it's scary, but, like, I don't know. I feel like it's mainly was scarier, much more scarier back then. I don't know. I've been desensitized, as we have been as an audience.
Right. I feel like it is probably...
It's a good movie. I'm not saying...
It's probably significantly less scary now just because the effects are still great, but, like, they don't necessarily... They're not as cutting edge as they used to be.
Yeah, because we've seen, like, worse... We've seen the Saw series. It's, like, just, like, worse stuff. I mean, it's still creepy and scary.
Fucking Hereditary, like...
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's just, like... It's not bad. It's just, like... It's, like, nice to see, but it's not, like... I wouldn't say it actually gave me nightmares anymore.
Right.
That's one thing.
I'm watching it this Halloween, though.
You should, yeah.
I'm finally just gonna man up and watch it this year. So that'll be interesting. Another big guy from the 70s, who I just referenced in my last episode because I recommended one of his movies, Peter Bogdanovich. Mm-hmm. Huge guy. I just recommended The Last Picture Show, which, again, if you didn't watch last week, I'm going to recommend that again. Watch that movie. It is a masterpiece.
I can confirm.
And I always thought it was cool, Bogdanovich's relationship with Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Because, like...
It's a dream relationship.
It is. Like, I mean... I've already seen a lot of insight into that relationship through, like, documentaries and stuff. But, like... It fascinates me to no end. Like, there's never a point where I've just been like, okay, I know all that I care to know about this subject. Because, like...
I want to know everything.
Because that's the dream relationship, like you said, that everybody would love to have, is, like, just being Orson Welles' protege. So you want to, like, know what that was like as much as you can, you know?
Especially because, like, at the time, he had made what was considered to be the greatest movie of all time.
Basically, yeah.
And, so, like, you got that. And then he's actually your friend, kind of, too. Yeah. Like, not just your like, you guys hang out.
Yeah, and they were, like, good friends, too.
Yeah, they were good friends.
They hung out all the time.
So that's, like, even better.
So, yeah.
Because it's not just professional.
That was a very fascinating thing about Bogdanovich. And, oh my god, okay, one of my favorite directors of all time, who was big in the 70s, switching gears a little bit towards a lighter director, Mel Brooks. Because, you know, he didn't make the heavy dramas or anything. But he was still an important new wave guy because the comedies he was making were very revolutionary. Like,
Blazing Saddles.
It wasn't just dramas that were revolutionizing cinema at the time. Like, because he made a lot of very risky like Blazing Saddles
with like, you know.
Oh my god! Like,
Sheriff. I mean, like, it's obviously like a play on it, but like it's also like they you know, it's like in new, you know,
right
new territory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was brilliant.
That movie was right, and that movie was magic because you united. There were 4 writers in that movie, and 2 of them were 2 of the greatest comedic minds ever, Mel Brooks and Richard Pryor.
Yeah,
that was why it was so magic. I feel like, you know, you had the 2 of those minds like just going together and just creating one of the greatest comedies of all time. So brilliant. I remember the first time I saw that movie, I was just like, I thought I knew Mel Brooks, but I didn't until I watched this movie. And like, the whole movie is hilarious, but like, the fucking ending part where they're going through the studio lot.
That's genius.
That was fucking amazing, especially for the time.
Yeah, like, when I saw it as a kid, that was the first time I'd ever seen something, at least knowledgeably, so meta. Like, we're in a movie. Like, I was like, oh shit, that's fucking hilarious, because I saw it in like middle school. And
that was a cool thing about Mel Brooks. He was always very meta in all of his movies. It was always just
people take that for granted.
I know. It's just like, and it's so refreshing to watch his movies because if any genre is dead these days, it's the satire genre.
Well, because life is a satire now.
I guess
can't be that.
I guess that's true. It is a bit harder. The South Park guys are still finding a way, though.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, again, if you want to see a satire done perfectly, watch any of his movies. Another great one that, like, people also consider to be one of the greatest comedies of all time, Young Frankenstein.
I love Marty Feldman in that movie, Igor.
Yeah.
He's great. He was only in, like, one of the Mel Brooks movies, I think it was, like, Silent movie.
Yeah.
And he was just a really funny guy. I don't know why he makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of his movies, his very first movie, was one of those instrumental late 60s, movies that just started the new wave, The Producers. That was like, that style of comedy. I mean, how shocking. Yeah. Because at that point, World War II had only been over for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're doing they're doing Hitler in Springtime, and everybody's just like, holy, what? Like, this is so tasteless. And it's like, no, it's actually brilliant.
Yeah.
But you just gotta wait and realize.
2005 comes around. Then we can do it.
Right.
And people will be like, oh, this is good.
Right? This is, like, amazing. So, yeah, shout out to Mel Brooks. Fucking still going strong at, like, how old is he? Like, 93 at this point?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Have you ever seen High Anxiety?
Sadly, no, I have not.
Oh, my God. That's one of... Like, I have to say that movie, because that's one... He parodied Hitchcock.
I know it's a Hitchcock parody.
And he sent it to Hitchcock.
I know, yeah, and Hitchcock sent him a case of wine.
Yep.
Yeah, I did know
and
that.
There's a brilliant meta scene in that where, it's not a spoiler scene, but it's just like a joke, and the camera's just like panning towards everyone, and it's like coming from the outside. Yeah. And right as it gets to the glass, it just breaks through the glass, and then everyone stares at the camera, and then the camera just backs out slowly.
That sounds very Mel Brooksy.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my, it's just so funny and then they turn around and just go on with their scene.
That's amazing.